Welcome to ArtCo Afternoon Arts. Thank you for joining me. My name is Amber Crimmings. I'm the artistic director slash cat herder around here. And today is Monday. Monday is our Back to Basics day, where we're going to learn how to make some nice basic stuff, and we're going to play around with a kinetic form of art, a very simple one called an Agamograph. And this is a really awesome technique. Have you ever seen the pictures that are printed and they have that bit of plastic that's ridged on them, and then you kind of shift them from side to side and the image changes? Well, that's kind of the basic and the precept on this project. It's where we're actually taking 2 or 3 separate images and we're putting them together in one piece. And as it turns, or as you move as a viewer, it changes what image you're actually looking at. So this is a really fun technique. You can tell Doobs is getting settled in for it. He's already decided this seems kind of interesting. So we're going to play around with this. Make sure too that you're taking a look on our website. We've got a lot of really great work online by local DFW artists, and a lot of links to our live music feeds, etc. I want to go in some basics of Agamographs before we actually get to the drawing part. So I kind of found these 2 awesome, kind of similar images but different. They both happen to have like a circle or an ellipses. And so I went ahead and I measured out. If you see, I've got some long lines down on these. Now, Agamograph is where I'm taking these 2 and I'm putting them together. Remember, this is a kinetic art movement, and this was actually started, I guess I could go into some of the history. This was started by an Israeli artist. His name is Yaakov Agam is his name, and so he was a kinetic and sculptural artist, and he was kind of one of the pioneers of the whole kinetic movement, the whole taking artwork and having it be static and then having it look differently as viewers were kind of moving around, etc. And so it kind of stuck around, and then once they figured out that plastic could reflect light in a different way, well then boom, now we have all kinds of really fun things. Alright, so we're taking 2 and we're putting them together. As you can see, I have a piece of paper as well. It started out as mostly a long piece of paper. I had to cut off a bit because I had a bit of like extra that didn't kind of fit in there. But I've got a nice long piece of paper here, and so this is what I have in order to put my 2 images on. Now if you look at this, it's got ridges. So how Agamographs work is you have one image on the plane that's canting this way. We'll call this the right plane. So if I have an image like down here that's cut into strips like I have drawn on the paper, and then I have glue, aha, now I can attach it. And so say I cut all these strips and I want these to be one image that I see from one angle. Well, that means I'm going to have to glue those strips in the proper order onto each angle that goes in this direction. So right here, and then right here, and then right here, and then right here. Yeah? So that means when it's glued on there, it's going to kind of be every other one. So I'm going to demonstrate this for you real quick because I want you to be able to see this and understand it before we get into the actual drawing part. Now I might have more than what I need. Let's see how many I've got here. We got to count our angles. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just gonna keep 4 in this, and I'm gonna keep those main 4. I'm going to get the rest of these cut off. So here's my one image. I'm just doing this for example purposes, so I don't care if it's the same size right now. I just kind of wanted to fit on there so that we can showcase those to you. We'll get these guys cut off. Okay, let's see how many we have on the other side, because that was the right side. We'll make sure 1, 2, 3, you got 4 on the other side, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to cut these guys off. So really your paper gets really short. Now I've got 2 images here, and then my bent paper. And so I'm going to take these, and I'm going to get these guys cut. And you can see Doobs is really, he's kind of paying attention to this project. He's making sure that we're keeping everything in the right order and all that jazz. And so I'm getting these images cut up and prepared so that I can get those glued on to the main piece of paper here. So I try to keep them in order as I do this. You can glue as you go, but I think I'm just going to get all these guys cut, and then we can glue all at once, and I'm not having to go back and forth. But it's whatever floats your boat, yeah? So I'm going to take you guys down. Now I've got all these guys cut up, and so now they're ready to get glued onto my main guy here. So I'm going to grab my glue out. I think I've still got some in that one. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and now I'm going to start getting these on my piece of paper. I'm going to get this guy glued on. Now what I need to remember, if my paper is not as big as my original, let's see, actually these guys are the same height, so we can actually, if we wanted to mark this guy down, let's do that. We'll mark that guy down. That way they're the same size. There we go. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to make sure that I've got all these taken care of. Now what you can do, if you think it would be easier, we could pretend that image is A and then image B. So I could do A all on this side, right? And then B on the other. Or you can label them with numbers or whatever it is that helps you keep track, yeah? And so then you can label these on the back with numbers. That helps you keep track of the images. So now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to take my image here, and I'll just make this one the A image. And then I'm just going to put the glue right on my A here. And I'm going to make sure I get these guys on here, nice and lined up with my lines. And so I'm going to go ahead and glue up the other A so that I can get this guy attached. We're going to line this guy up. And then I'm going to get my next guy lined up. And we're going to get him glued on. Get my third one here. We'll get this guy attached. Oh, very good. And if you guys are here, say shout, throw a comment down, say howdy if you got any questions. If you haven't watched us before, Doobs is our cat that hangs out while we do these classes. He's the original Deep Ellum Alley Cat. He's the mother of our cat that was on site, Clover, who adopted us and was last kitten before we got her fixed and taken care of. And so he likes to hang out and make art, and when we're actually open, he walks on a leash, so he comes and hangs out on site. Alright, so now I've got my first image, which is that donut-esque kind of image. So now I want to get my image attached on my other side, which is going to be my B side. So I'm going to get this guy glued down, and I'm going to do the same thing left to right, making sure that I'm keeping my images in order and that they're glued down nice and straight. This is a really good kind of practice on how to get your brain kind of wrapped around on how to do this. just using some simple magazine images to start out with. That's easy. Alright, so now I've got all my images glued on there, and right now it looks pretty crazy, right? And so I just want to gently guide that back into its little folded kind of section. And I've actually got a piece of brown paper here. So I'm going to take this guy on the back side, and I'm going to get some glue just on some of these edges right here. You know, remember when we did the quilling? So I'm just going to get kind of some of those on there. Try to get that pretty well glued up. Oops, that's upside down. And then we're just going to get these guys pushed down. Whoops. You don't want to shift them when you push them down, but you do want to put a little pressure on them to make sure that they've got good contact with the paper. And so what this should do is create a really cool image. Look at this. So when I have it to the side, whammo, that's really cool. And then when I shift it, then I've got kind of both images. And then when I go to the next side, oh my gosh, it's a whole other image. So this makes for a really, oops, it's not glued, I was kind of showing you before it dried. But this makes for a really neat kind of image for us to see from left to right as we're walking down a hallway. Or we're walking around in a larger space. This is also the same concept that we use when you have lenticular images, and lenticular images are the same kind of premise as these Agamograph. I always say it wrong, man. Agamograph. Lenticular images are very similar. They're the ones, again, that have the plastic on top of them. So now we're going to go through the process of how we do all of the measuring in order for us to get there and get this project done when it comes to a drawing and painting project. So I'm just going to pull another piece of paper, and we're going to stick with this size because it's really quick. So I think we're just going to stick with this and play around with a little half size. I've got one here, but I'm going to go ahead and measure out a new one, and then we'll play around with it. Actually, we may do it in this manner, and then we'll smush it up this way. I think that'll make for a fun skinny one. Well, no, never mind. No, we won't. Just kidding. Alright, so I did this one just using the width of my ruler instead of measuring. But my ruler is, let's see how wide my ruler is. It's definitely wider than an inch, for sure. Let's see. Yeah, it's like 1 1/8 inches. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm actually just going to create a tick mark every inch. And so I'm going to use my ruler at the top of my paper, and I'm going to use my pencil just to make a little dot, and it should, right at 11, we should be totally done with that. And so I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to shift it down. It's really important that I don't take my paper and I turn it around to get to the other side. Because right here, maybe that's an odd amount, we never know. So you always want to get in the habit of, once you measure at the top, if you plan on connecting them, always keep your ruler in the same orientation and just shift it down. So I'm going to go ahead and make dot marks at every inch because I need to create some line and structure for this project so that I know where to make my folds. So I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to connect my dots and go on with getting these in. This will help me make sure that when I make my folds that they're really spot on, and that they're straight, and that they're equidistant, meaning the same distance. You can tell Doobs is intrigued by this process so much that he is in a deep state of concentration as he watches me do this. aren't you? He likes that. The thing is that he likes pencils and sticks. It's his thing. That's his thing. Sometimes strings, but he's mostly just kind of, you can hypnotize this cat. See? Alright, so I'm getting the rest of these guys nice and lined out. That way I can do my folding process. Just because I want to know where my images will go. And I want to do a lot of that before I really get, ooh, that one shifted. I want to do that before I get a lot of my drawing in. You see, he thinks I'm boring. So now I've got my paper all lined out. Hey Bill, how are you? Happy you guys are here. Nice to see you. I'm so sorry you guys missed the class. We did the switch over to Facebook, so we've been doing posts online. But yeah, we've been doing our classes on YouTube, but Facebook doesn't do an alert post other than me just posting. So I'm happy that you guys found us. Alright, so we're working on Agamographs. These are really fun. Remember, these are the ones that we can shift them and boom, you've got one image, and then boom, you've got a whole nother image. You get more for your buck. It's a 2-for-1 special. And so how we're going to achieve this is we're going to get these nice and evenly bent. And so how I like to do is I like to line up the pencil line and just kind of get 2 nice clear goalposts on each side and then kind of connect those down. And so now it's going to pop up, and I want this to be a real sharp fold. So I'm going to keep my scissors closed, but I'm just going to take the back side of them and I'm going to smush that paper down. Or I can take my ruler, I can do that, or I can use the back side of my pencil, but sometimes if there's color on the outside, it'll transfer the paper when you do that. But by rubbing something flat and hard up against it, it'll help give you a much tighter fold in there. Now if I'm folding the opposite way and I've got handy thumbnails that have grown out a little bit, I can actually push those right where the line is and force it to fold there. And so right where my fingernails are, or were, it's going to force a nice fold. And so that gives me a nice kind of guideline. And since I've got the rest of my line drawn out here, I can compare this side with this side and make sure they're the same or the equidistance apart. Unless I drew things wrong, they should match up. And then I'm going to want them to get nice and seated down. And then I'm going to do it on the other side. And so by getting most of these taken care of now, we're not going to have to worry about this when it comes to the drawing part. Now remember, we did these in 1-inch folds. So when we go to do our drawings, we can either do them right on here, or we can do them on a separate piece and glue them how we did before. And you can do these as skinny as you want. I mean, if you want to do meticulous little fold lines, because I'll show you here in a minute, because when we use the opposite side, because the paper gets dirty and from all the handling and folding on one side, but the other side gets nice and clean. You can see the Doobster is enthralled. Alright, so that gives us a really nice kind of piece. And if we look at it, I have my side where I did all of my planning and my line work on there, yeah. And then I've got my opposite side that's nice and clean and ready for me to put my work on there. Also notice I've got an odd number, so I have an extra one that's kind of sticking up here that doesn't have a finisher on it, yeah? And so I'm going to actually cut this one off because I want my lenticular image to have a nice, clean, even number. And so we want both ends to have that same amount. So I'm going to cut off this last part because I don't want to use this for my final. Alright, so I've got a fantastic piece here that's going to be ready for me to play around with. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of 4, which gives me a couple pieces to kind of play with more. And I'm going to grab some more paper. I'm just going to use, well,
You expect me to be okay with that?
I don't know what I'm playing right now. Play around with some white paper here. And then I'm going to get some paint on here, and I'm going to work on 2 pieces, remember. And maybe I'll just do something simple. I've got some paint pots here. You know what, let's just, I don't have as much time as I thought I would have. We'll use our markers here. That'll be fine. We'll do some simple little like emoji faces. That way you can kind of figure out. You see what he's doing? It's like, what is that? What is that? Oh, you know what? I'm not going to do this because I already showed you how to cut it up. You can do that same thing. There's too much words in that. Okay, I'm not going to show you how to cut it up because I showed you that last time with the initial piece. But what I am going to show you is how to keep track of your drawings when you go to do them. This does require, however, that you work on little thumbnails. So let's get a little plan going. I'm just going to get a little square drawn. You see Doobs like that. And I'm going to kind of get 2 drawn because I'm going to need 2 images. And I'm going to play around with, I don't know, we'll do a little happy cat emoji, and then we'll just do a happy emoji. That'll be fun. Okay, alright, so we're going to mess around with how we're going to get these guys done. And we're going to do this in pencil. That way we can get some of our lines matched up. Okay, so I know on this side I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's go ahead and work on here. And it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same precept. Here's a general rule. As when I cut it up, except I'm just going to kind of graph the paper and go from there. So I'm going to have this guy as like, you know, he's going to fit in my middle 3. So that's going to be, I'm going to label these. I'm going to get my A, and A. And then I'm going to get my B. Okay, so now I've kind of got a plan, and I've got these labeled because sometimes when we get in the creative process, we don't think we're going to forget things, but you're going to forget things. So it's really good to keep labels on things to help us kind of keep track of all that jazz. And so now I know the core of like my little face for either one of them is going to be in my middle like 3. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So my 2 to my 4. So this is going to give me a kind of nice way in order to start creating the rest of my circle. So when I start creating my circle, I'm going to start actually, I'm going to straighten this out a little. I'm going to start working on the actual circle part. And since I want to get a real circle, I'm just going to use this guy because he works pretty well. So I'm going to lay this guy down right here. And so look how I've got a kind of intersection here at this line. So this can help me because I can kind of use my ruler to estimate, well, it'll pick up right here, and I'm going to estimate here. It'll pick up about right there. So if I take this guy, I can actually shift him down, and he should connect on both sides. And so I'm going to kind of continue this because I want to create these little intersection points of my lines as I work on my project. And I can check these points as I go. You know, if I take this guy and I reshape him and I hold him at an angle, you see how that circle matches up. Do you see that? How these end up matching up? Right? So then I can check them and make sure that I've got them in the right spots. So I'm going to get that guy going over here. That guy connects right there. That guy connects right there. Okay. Well, maybe I did this wrong. It's sure taking more than I thought it would take. Well, we'll just kind of go with it. I thought I was doing this right, but perhaps not. Alright, I'm going to get this guy in here, and then we're going to get this connection point. We'll have him go off the page. And then we'll get this other section in right here. So I didn't quite get the whole circle in, but we got a good amount of it in there. See how that looks? Maybe we'll just work on a little non-representational one then. We'll just play around with our left and our right when it comes to our red and our blue. Let's play around with getting, I've got a circle in there, so I think what else I'd like to have is a nice kind of line that goes back and forth. So I think I'm going to create that. And so I'm just going to kind of create, I don't know, a little curved. I think I definitely want it to curve through here. So I'm going to start in the center here. Give it a thickness. And then I'm just going to go across. Make sure that these guys are matching up. And you can check this at any time. Always working to check these guys. Make sure. Make sure they're always lining up where they should. And creating that nice kind of image. Right? We're playing around with our thicknesses. And playing around with our shapes. Alright, so we've got a nice one going there. Again, we want to stay very simple, so I'm going to also play around with getting a nice, we'll get a nice little diamond in here. I'm going to hit this guy from the other side. I'm going to get this guy down here. And I'm going to match and mimic that angle. Go across. See how I've got this guy? Let's take a look. Oh, I've got the beginnings of a nice diamond right there. So I'm going to go across. Try to get that same angle. Go across. Try to get that same angle. I'm going to make this a nice apex. Across. Across. Same angle. And then that one will go off the side that way. And so this makes, again, it gets really complicated. You can create your two separate images, which is what I recommend, in order to then redraw them on your pieces. But again, this is a really fun way to kind of play around with your image work. Just watch this when it starts popping out in fun ways. And so I'm just going through and just getting some color on these. That way I can kind of show you that color flood. We're just going to go in. I'm just going to put cool colors on one end, on one side, and then warm colors on the other side. This is a fantastic, that one's about dead. This is a fantastic project in order to help kids figure out kinetic movement and how movement and how one is a line can change how you see things. I'm just going in and throwing some green here. And then I'm going to get some, I don't know, I'll get some hot orange. I didn't really line this guy out, but that's okay. I'll get some nice orange here. You see how I'm getting all that taken care of and put in. And I'm staying within each of my respective little spots as I get these guys colored in. Alright, remember this is our basics class. This is where we're going over the basic concepts. We're not working on final images. We're just trying to make sure that we've got like the basics down for things. So these are all practice, not supposed to be finished. I just want to go in and kind of show you some of the basics on how these things operate. Oh my goodness. Let me get a orange. Or that's fine. That bright red works. Okay, I'm going through, getting a yellow in this spot so that I can get that colored and full on. Again, I just want to show you like the basics of how we get these guys colored and filled in, and how we just continue to work on these boys. And so I'm just taking the purple, just having that go from the bottom to the top. It actually pulls a little bit of the blue in and does a cool little fade. So again, just taking simple principles, trying to get those applied onto our paper here. You know, it tends to look a little cray-cray at some point.
I could literally sit here forever, and that was probably like the best moment.
And so I'm just kind of doing some little reverberations off the shapes. You know, we just kind of go with what works. I was going to do emojis, but since I was off, we'll just adjust. And so you can end up, you know, taking all your A5 and all that jazz off. But what this is going to end up giving you is a really fun final piece again. Oh, Bill, Linda, you guys went camping last week, huh? That's super fun. I'm excited. I've got a little getaway camping trip myself right after my birthday. Guys, I turned 42 this year. Supposedly that's the answer to life and the universe and everything. I don't know, though we'll see. So far, I can say that 2020 is not my favorite year, like, at all. I don't think it's anybody's favorite year. I mean, maybe it's some people's favorite year. Some people are not doing too terrible. Okay, so I've got this. Now look at this. Look what's so great about this. Now we've got our images going this way and our images going this way, yeah? And so we're able to take something and kind of cognitively wrap our brain around how we're going to actually create this really fun piece. And what's fun about these pieces is even when we do them really, really small, they become less in your face, that they are, that they're actually, you know, something that's got pieces that kind of stick out, but it becomes really hard-hitting and interesting when you see these images shift and change out of the corner of your eye, which is really what the idea between kinetic art is the interaction between the viewer and the images. And what's really great about these is you can take two images seemingly different, put them together into one piece, or you can take two images that really mean something and that become hard-hitting because they play off of each other as well. In any case, this is a fun way of making art. It's a fun way and use of materials that's different from the everyday. And it's a really great little tool to have in your toolbox as a creative or artist. And this is a really fun project to play around with kiddos, etc., especially if you do the gluing method that I showed you from the very beginning. Well, thank you guys very much for joining me for today's edition of ArtCo Afternoon Art. Make sure that you're finding our website, taking a look at that, www.DeepEllumArt.co, and you're checking all the social media platforms on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're all at DeepEllumArtCo. And then make sure you're looking me up. I'm Alley Cat Press on Facebook and Instagram, so make sure that you're catching up on all the stuff that we're doing to work with artists. We do have a virtual art show that's going to be coming up here soon, showcasing some panels done by artists in the DFW area, where they came into Deep Ellum, painted on the panels to help all of the local businesses that had their windows busted out, etc. And we're very excited to be a part of that exhibition and showcase and be able to show, hopefully, the Metroplex and beyond, how much our artists gave back to community, and then how we all kind of come together as a community to step forward in new and positive ways. Well, thank you guys again. I will see you tomorrow at 3 p.m. where we will be doing our art journaling. Remember, tomorrow is Tuesday, so tomorrow is our art journaling / art therapy day. So make sure that you're catching in. We play around with mixed media. We play around with creative thinking and creations. And then we also just kind of chat, ruminate, percolate on things that might be going on our lives, or just things we want to focus on. And these are really good ways to take the creative thought processes and have them move into other areas of our life more effectively. Certainly tools that do you more good than ever they do harm. And Tuesdays are one of my favorite days because there's no pressure on those to create finished works, but we get to just play around in our small little books. So I will see you guys tomorrow. You have a wonderful Monday afternoon, and I'll see you